This is chapter 58 of The Night Singer. 58. Hannah found her eyes constantly drifting back to the drawer of her desk. Why hadn't she waited to ask for the investigation report? She didn't have time to start digging into what her father had done right now. She had a job to do. She pressed her nails into the palms of her hands in frustration. Did she really think she would be able to prove that Lars was acting on someone else's orders, or that he was actually innocent? And if she did, what goddamn difference would it make? He was dead. In reality, it wasn't that simple. Both she and Christopher had to live with the consequences of the things he had been convicted of. She had to uncover the truth, whatever it was, and she couldn't let anything get in her way. Hannah needed to break the constant whirlwind of thoughts, so she headed to the nearest bathroom. Behind her, she heard Eric shout for someone deaf, but she simply sped up, closed the door, and slumped down onto the toilet lid. After a few minutes, a message came through from Eric, telling her he had received the CCTV footage from the shopping center. Hannah got up and flushed, to make it sound like she had used the toilet. As she was making her way back to the investigation room, Ove popped his head out of his office. "Can we have a quick chat?" It was less a question than an order, and he disappeared back into his room without waiting for her to reply. Hannah had sensed a change in him during their morning meeting, and though she was convinced they should be focusing on Marcus Johansson rather than Franny Broberg, she had barely said a word. She didn't want to be alone with Ove right now. Judging by his tone of voice, he didn't have any new information relating to the case. This was about something else. Hannah stepped into his office and closed the door behind her. Ove was smiling, but she thought she could see the smile straining at the corners. "Take a seat," he said. He continued once she had done as he said. "There's no need to look so terrified. I just wanted to see how you thought your first few days had been." "Okay." She said this in response to his desire to check in, not as an answer to his question, but it felt like Ove had chosen to misunderstand her. "I think it's probably gone a little better than that." "Thanks." As though that word were any better. Ove's forced cheeriness made her worry there was more to come. She wondered whether he had spoken to Eric this morning and what Eric might have told him. Perhaps it was unfair to Eric. After all, he had voluntarily told Hannah that Ove had asked him to keep an eye on her and claimed that Ove was acting out of concern. "You got the investigation report?" Hannah nodded slowly. So it was her father he wanted to talk about. She should have known. "Why do you want to stir up all that old business? Wouldn't it better just to let it go?" Let it go? How was she ever supposed to be able to do that? His question took her right back to square one. There was so much that just made no sense. Hannah looked up at Ove, at his softly hunched body. There was a stain on the sleeve of his blue shirt. Perhaps he had been looking after his granddaughter again. Behind his glasses, his eyes were fixed on her. This wasn't the moment to tell him about the photograph she had seen of Maria and Karina, nor to ask about the investigation report, whether there had been anything that made him doubt her father's guilt, or suspect that anyone else had been involved. Few investigations followed a perfectly straight path to the perpetrator. If someone felt threatened by the simple fact that she was back, she would have to keep her digging as quietly as she could. "I'm not sure I want to look through it yet," she said. "I don't actually know why I asked for it." "Good," said Ove, visibly relaxing. "Maybe I shouldn't have even given it to you, but I want to help you however I can." He sounded genuine, but it was obvious that he wanted to help her in a particular direction, away from her father. Ove was on the edge of saying something else when his phone rang. He glanced down at the number and answered. Hannah made to leave, but he held up a finger for her to wait. It sounded as though he were talking to Karina. There was something about his voice now that told Hannah there had been another development in the case. He hung up and smiled at her. "Marcus Johansson was on Oland on Wednesday," he said. "He bought gas at the Preem garage near the end of the bridge at 7 in the evening." In his statement, he had claimed that he hadn't been to Oland in weeks, but Hannah suddenly realized where she had seen his car before. I went to Mockelmosen that evening, and I think I parked behind his black Audi. The side mirror was broken." The only problem was that Hannah didn't remember seeing Marcus Johansson there.